Stellantis has a decent selection of EVs across its range of brands. Peugeot, for example, has the e-3008, the e-3008 and a selection of vans as well. But now Peugeot is entering a new era as the first of the Stellantis brands to offer the new Stella Medium platform. This is a BEV focused platform. It does have some hybrid options, but it is primarily intended for electric vehicles and has things like the skateboard design, so the batteries are under the floor. So it is very much optimized for EVs. Is this enough to give Peugeot real leadership in the electric vehicle marketplace? Before we answer that question, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube videos. This is still very much a Peugeot. Peugeot has done some pretty concept focused cars in the past, but this looks like a normal Peugeot. It's an SUV and follows the trend of having coupe style SUVs. However, Peugeot has placed the cutoff point for the slope quite far back so that it doesn't impinge on rear passenger space. There's no sign of chrome anywhere. This car is designed to look modern up to about 2030. There are two trim levels, Allure and GT, and eventually there will be 3 powertrains available, although initially we only get one. That is 210 horsepower with a 73 kilowatt hour battery. But there will be a dual motor version with the same battery, but 320 horsepower. Most exciting of all will be the extended range. That will have a 98 kilowatt hour battery and a 230 horsepower motor. On the GT version of this car, these front headlights will be matrix LEDs. They're just regular LEDs on the Allure. So let's take a look inside. As you can see, quite plush looking seats. The interior is kind of dominated by this central console. Americans will enjoy the fact there's a couple of cup holders here, and if we open this up, there's a sizable cubby behind that. Space here looks like it could be for a wireless phone charger, but in fact this sits in front of the central console under the dashboard. If you open up inside, you do get some charging options. There's a couple of USB-C ports and a regular 12-volt car power adapter. This is also a sizable cubby. The GT trim also has electrically adjustable seats with 2 slots of memory function on the driver's side. The rear seats are actually quite spacious. You can see that the fact that they put that cutting point far back means there is a decent amount of headroom. I think if you were 6 foot you would have a struggle, but someone who's 5'10" like me, perfectly adequate. And you can see a decent amount of knee room with me driving in front, not too bad at all. This GT version has quite a nice sunroof, panoramic across the top, and it opens as well. There's also these central air vents, and this, if the car was on, this would show you some touch controls for air conditioning. And down below you've got some USB ports for your rear seat passengers to charge their devices, and even a 12-volt car power adapter. This central armrest can be pulled forward. You see it's got a couple of cup holders and a kind of tray for maybe putting a device, or who knows what that's for, pencils maybe. The 2 outer rear seats have ISOFIX points, but there are none at the front. And there are these seat back pockets for your kids to keep their copies of Asterix in Britain, or whatever it is kids read these days. Although this is an SUV and not a particularly large one, actually rear boot space is quite generous. That's an electric boot release, and there's a button there to put it back down again. And the capacity here is 520 litres with the seats up. You'll see there's a bit of space here with just enough for some cables underneath the boot floor. Now you will need to go around the side to let the seats forward. There's a typical 60% on one side and you get 40% on the other side, and that gives you a sum total of 1,480 litres of storage. As already mentioned, the standard launch car has 73 kilowatt hours of battery capacity, which gives it a decent 327 miles of range. Now, stepping up to that much more powerful all-wheel drive version actually doesn't reduce the range very much. It's about the same. The real game changer, of course, will be the 98 kilowatt hour battery long range version, which ups the range to about 437 miles. That's a lot. That's going to be, in excess of, like a Tesla Model S. However, we're going to have to wait till November for that. There is 11 kilowatt AC available, although on a standard 7 kilowatt charger, you're going to take about 10.5 hours to charge this car to full. Now, DC charging goes up to 160 kilowatts, and that will take you from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes, which is certainly decent enough for motorway driving. Not the fastest around by any means, but certainly good enough for a longer journey. For general controls, there's a fairly conventional steering wheel. You've got controls for the adaptive cruise on the left, and you've got media controls on the right. There's a conventional stalk on the left for the lights, and one on the right for windscreen wipers. You can also see here you've got these two paddles, one on the right and the left for changing regeneration. Turn the car off and on includes this button, and then you've got this kind of paddle for going drive, neutral, reverse, and then there's a parking button at the top. There is a separate electronic parking brake, and this paddle here is for changing the drive modes between Eco, Sport and Normal. You get some discrete buttons here for the most important aspects of the climate control. And up here on this very shiny screen, you've got buttons for controlling the infotainment, which we'll get to in a minute. You get digital instrumentation, and this is part of a 21-inch widescreen, which also includes the infotainment. So speaking of that infotainment, you can see that the basic screen has a sat-nav. This is quite a nice sat-nav. It has routing that also involves telling you where to stop for optimal speed to charge your vehicle. And you can see these buttons on the bottom here. If I press music, you get a view of what's playing on your music. That's a full navigation screen. There's phone functions there because you can actually have a wireless CarPlay on this car, and that's how you set it up. Go back to the home screen. There are a few extra functions. It's a fairly minimal system. You can see a few settings there, shortcuts, functions, and some tutorials as well. So this is part of Stellantis' iCockpit system, which is a connected car, and you get an app with that as well, which allows you to do things like remotely trigger charging, plan your routes actually and send them to the car, which is pretty useful, and a lot of other functions beside. So this car is a standard version with 210 horsepower. That's a decent amount, but it only manages to get this car to 60 miles per hour in 8.8 seconds, which is not that rapid. That said, being electric, you have immediate torque, so acceleration feels pretty good. It's also worth noting that because this is at least a battery electric first platform, the batteries are low down in a skateboard format, which means that the center of gravity is low, so actually handling is better than you'd expect for a car this tall. Definitely not say this is a driver's car, but it's certainly adequate enough. This car is front wheel drive. Although this platform could theoretically support rear wheel drive, they're not bothering to do any version with rear wheel drive. You either get front wheel drive or you get all wheel drive. Certainly there's enough power even in the standard version for a bit of overtaking. Not that I want to do it on roads like this, and I really hope a truck doesn't arrive. These seats are comfortable, and you can sense something happening with the bolsters when you get in. They kind of hug you, which is a little bit advanced, a bit like a sports car. This is definitely not a sports car, however. Now, I haven't had time to delve really into the minutiae of the safety functions of this vehicle. There is cruise control, and it's a pretty advanced platform, so you can expect a lot of bells and whistles, and they could be quite useful on roads like this when you have oncoming vans. But if you want more details about the safety features of this car, take a look at the written review, which you'll see a link to just below this video. So now we get to the elephant in the room about the Peugeot e-3008, the price. Even the basic Allure version is £46,000, which is a lot of money for a Peugeot. If you step up to the GT version, you're going to be paying close to £50,000. There are also 3 option packs you can add on to the top of that. To put that in perspective, if you go for the standard range version of the Tesla Model Y, that's going to set you back less money than even the Allure version of this. However, that doesn't have as much range, but it is quite a bit quicker. And there's also more cargo space. The long range version of the Tesla Model Y is a couple of £1,000s more expensive. However, it has almost exactly the same amount of range as this car and is a lot quicker. In fact, it's probably going to be quicker than the version that comes out with the dual motors. Of course, if you step up to the performance version of the Y, that's going to really knock this out of the park. Unfortunately, Peugeot hasn't told us exactly how much this long-range version is going to be. We had hopes it would be under £50,000, but with the GT version of the standard car also costing just under £50,000, that's not looking very likely now. That's quite sad, because having over 400 miles of range in a decent quality car for £50,000 would really shake the market up. Overall though, if you look at the advertised prices of the hybrid versions of this car, they're a lot cheaper than this one, so you are paying a significant premium for the full battery electric drivetrain. The Peugeot e-3008 is a comfortable enough car. In fact, it's a very nice car, and if they'd released the long range version of this immediately, it could have been an absolute game changer. Unfortunately, this standard range version is a bit more vanilla. Yes, there's plenty of space inside and there's a lot of cargo capacity. It's a very practical car, but it's not a must-have electric vehicle buy. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube videos.